Tobias Wolff once said, "We are made to persist. That's how we find out who we are." I think that this quote is extremely fitting for this memoir. In This Boy's Life by Tobias Wolff, he establishes the idea that the people one surrounds themselves with and associate with is a crucial part to our development. He also reveals many of the problems that children face as they grow up, such as trying to figure out who they are and who they want to be. This Boy's Life is a memoir written by Tobias Wolff. It was published by Grove Press and released March 19th, 2000. The book received the Ambassador Book Award for Biography and Autobiography. Tobias Wolff was born June 19th, 1945, and later, after becoming a writer, he was a creative writing teacher. He's best known for his memoirs This Boy's Life and Pharaoh's Army. He has been given multiple awards for his writing, such as the Faulkner Award for Fiction, as well as the Story Prize. In the beginning of this book, we find out that Toby's mom, Rosemary, is in an abusive relationship with Roy, who is her second husband. Toby and his mom plan to go to Utah to make some money, which is an attempt to get away from Roy. After escaping him, Toby changes his name to Jack as a means to cut off ties with his father, who abandoned him when he was little. His father now lives with Toby's brother, Jeffrey. Since his father left, Toby has a close relationship with his mom. However, this doesn't stop him from lying to her frequently. After moving to Seattle, Rosemary meets Dwight, who seems like a good man, but it turns out that he has many of the same flaws Roy once did. Toby has a very peculiar outlook on life. He is so unhappy with his life that he creates one that he wants to live in his mind. He constantly creates his own reality, becoming a different person based on who he is around. With his mom, he's a good boy who could do no wrong, but with his friends, he's an outlaw. However, this outlaw behavior of his does not stop him from acting as the perfect student when applying to prep schools. He's so obsessed with his lies that he comes to believe them as truth. He has hope of running away and starting a new life. He plans to run away to Alaska with Arthur, who was his best friend, after a Boy Scout meeting. This plan, however, never actually happens because he makes some friends from another troop. Later on, in an attempt to escape Dwight, Toby tries to convince his brother to let him live with him. He finally gets the opportunity he's been waiting for when he's accepted to Hill School, which is one of the many prep schools he has applied to. Mr. Howard, a man that graduated from Hill, interviewed Toby and was basically the reason he got in. After his acceptance, Mr. Howard acts as his mentor. He and his wife get Toby fitted for clothes so that he can fit in at school. Before leaving for Hill, Dwight and Toby have another argument. Dwight pushes Toby in front of his mom because of this, she arranges for Toby to live with his friend Chuck Bolger for a while. Toby gives his mom his word that he will be on his best behavior, but immediately breaks it when he steals gas from the Welch family. Before Jack begins at Hill, he spends the summer with his father and brother in California. Again, his dad leaves him to spend time with his girlfriend in Las Vegas. All the lies finally catch up to Toby, and he can't keep up his grades at Hill and is expelled. After this, he joins the army and serves in Vietnam. In this part of the story, Toby and his mother Rosemary are going to Utah so that they can make some money. Toby says, "I didn't come to Utah to be the same boy I'd been before." This is the very beginning of the book, and he's already admitting that he wants to change himself and that he puts on different faces. He also says that he had dreams of his own transformation. This characterizes Toby in that it shows us that he doesn't like himself very much, so he wishes to become someone else. He says, "The first thing I wanted to do was change my name." So here he's literally changing himself into someone else, and at this point he takes on the name of Jack, after Jack London. He says, "I believed that having his name would charge me with some of the strength. Not only is this a way for him to become someone else, but it's also a way for him to cut off ties with his father, who abandoned him when he was little." His mom at first does not like this idea, but then finally agrees, which reveals that Toby can make his mother agree to anything. However, in return, Toby would have to take classes at the church. This is also a way for Toby to shed any attachment to his father, because his father had always been Protestant, but it turned out that his family had actually been Jews. So that shows us that at a young age, Toby grew up with his parents lying to him, which kind of explains a lot of the things that happen over the period of the book. His father demanded that he stick to the name he had been given because it was an old family name, but this turns out to be untrue, which again emphasizes the lying that Toby grew up with and is probably a part of the reason why he started lying. But this is also a thing that connects him to his dad, which is something Toby would not want. Toby's brother Jeffrey is asked about his opinion, but he doesn't really care what Toby calls himself, which is an emphasis on how he only has his mom in the other relationships. He doesn't really have a male role model. My mother was pleased by my father's show of irritation and stuck up for me. This shows the nature of Toby's mom and his dad's relationship, and it shows that Toby never grew up with a stable family or a father figure. In this passage, Toby begins to fill out applications for the various prep schools that he's applying to. He fills out the transcripts and the application forms, so he finally starts to do it, but this is after Arthur gives him all the things that he needs in order to forge the recommendation letters. It says, I began writing the letters of support. This shows how far Toby has come in terms of lying. In the beginning, he had lied about little things to his mom, whereas now he's full out lying about who he is. I wrote out rough copies in longhand, then typed up final versions. This quote demonstrates how much effort he puts into lying. He tries to portray himself as the boy that he wants to be, which is funny because if he actually put time into schoolwork and other activities, he could be that boy. He also types up multiple drafts, trying to make them be as teacher-like as possible so that it's believable. So this shows that he is smart, and if he actually put the work in to school, he could be the boy that he wants to be. He says, now the words came as easily as if someone were breathing them into my ear. While reading this, it felt very rushed and very tense. This quote demonstrates how much he is lying. It's as if a completely random person is writing a letter about him. He also says full of stifled truth, which in other words kind of means drowned truth. The things that he writes about are based off of things in his life, but he exaggerates them, such as being an Eagle Scout. He was in the Boy Scouts, but he never reached the rank of Eagle Scout because of his behavior. These ideas about myself that I had held on to for dear life. This is a version of the life that Toby wants to live but can't. He wants to make himself into a better boy, but he does this by lying. He also says, I did not say that I was a star quarterback or even a varsity football player. I never quickened to lumpen spirit of the sport. To test one's own popularity was baffling to me. Toby attempts to fit in. His lies are all made up so that he can be liked by others. He wishes to be what other people desire. The last thing is, these were not ideas I had of myself. This quote shows that Toby tries to be good, but it always results in him lying. All in all, I really enjoyed this book. I found it really interesting to read about all the different things that Toby had to endure because you really don't hear about it often. I always knew that kids lied, but I never knew someone would take it that far. I would recommend this book to people who want to read about a very captivating and wild growth of a young man. Anyways, thanks for listening. Until next time.